New York City has just fundamentally changed what Section 8 is about. More full-time working tenants, including degree-requiring roles, will soon be on the program. All New York City households below the income caps, that translate to singles making up to $27 an hour and families making well over $70,000 a year, were encouraged to apply, and 200,000 of them received word last week that they won the lottery to be put on the waiting list. From both the human and investor standpoint, I believe in what the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program was about before this change. That is, within those caps, prioritizing those of greatest need, the disabled, elderly, and very low-income single parents. Of them, those who found themselves at or near homelessness, but for investor purposes, I will go over what you need to know. That includes apartment buildings all the way down to owner-occupant duplexes.
Hello, I'm Abu, an aspiring real estate investor developer in Brooklyn, New York City. I started this YouTube channel to present myself, the knowledge and experience that I've built up, in search of one or more partners to begin and grow with. I specifically speak to international folks, but of course, I'm speaking to the American audience. If you see something extraordinary in me, reach out and we'll see if there's any way to combine our talents for development or if you are a great fit to be a more passive investor. Anyways, I'll make an intro video about myself later on. So for today, back on topic.
Disclaimer: Of course I am not a government official and thus cannot provide guarantee the accuracy of the information presented in this video. However, I am familiar with the subject matter and I did as much research as I could. Section 8, specifically the Housing Choice Voucher Program, is designed to provide funds to low-income folks so that they can pay the rent to a private landlord instead of having to live in government-managed housing like the projects. This is where the government is relying on investors like you, anybody that owns at least one full legal apartment that can be rented out to provide, as the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development puts it, decent, safe, and sanitary housing. This is a higher quality and more cost-effective way than the government could ever do. And since the government is paying the rent, it is pretty much a guaranteed way for property owners to build wealth. The tenant is typically required to contribute a modest portion of their income towards rent and utilities, and the government pays the rest. So, of course, the lower the tenant's income, the higher the portion of the rent that is coming to the property owner bank account, directly from the housing authority. The tenant has a strong incentive to pay their part. If they get evicted by their own fault while on the program, they lose the voucher, which already has been very difficult to get. To provide some clarity, while the Housing Choice Voucher Program is administered by the same department that property manages the projects, the New York City Housing Authority, NYCHA, it is not the owner or property manager. What has changed about Section 8 with this August 2024 selection of 200,000 households is that all who could qualify for Section 8 were allowed to enter a lottery and the winners were chosen at random instead of a needs-based priority. That is, any U.S. citizen or non-citizen with an immigration status that qualifies for these government benefits in New York City whose household income is under 50%, so half, of the area median income for New York City. So, as this new batch of people on the waiting list gets the vouchers with a spending letter, there will be more people with higher incomes on the program and more people working full-time. Due to the stereotyping about the typical Section 8 tenant, most landlords prefer having full-time working people as tenants. Many landlords are spooked by the tenant-friendly laws and judges that lets somebody who stops paying to stay for more than a year. So, having tenants that they would like to select from that are on this program, where they know the government will pay its share, might encourage more landlords to stay invested in New York City and to rent the empty units they are holding. I am not sure if this was the intention of this new round, and I do not think the impact towards this will be huge. I am just giving the information to investors. This is a horrible move by the city from the standpoint of helping the people that need it the most. While a single salary at 50% of AMI is not enough to pay the average in New York City rent, most people getting that sort of money from working are able to get roommates, while many people of the lowest incomes cannot live with other people due to mental or physical health conditions. To recap from my previous video, AMI, Area Median Income, is an important concept for investors in New York City to understand. For New York City, the area is all of New York City plus the northern suburbs of Westchester, Putnam, and Rockland counties. Those counties have higher incomes than the folks living in New York City itself, so it drags up the median. So 50% of AMI is half of the median income, and 30% AMI is 30% of the median income. The map on the left of the screen shows the counties that are included in New York City for AMI purposes. New York City itself is a collection of 5 counties: the Bronx, Queens, Kings County, which is Brooklyn, Richmond County, which is Staten Island, and New York County is Manhattan. The northern suburbs included in the area are Rockland County, Putnam County, and Westchester County. Looking at the income chart for 2024, 30% of AMI, which is supposed to be the priority for Section 8 for a family of 4, is $46,590. For a single person, that is $32,610, which happens to be a little bit above minimum wage. 50% of AMI is the maximum income for Section 8. For a single person, that is $54,350. That is the $27 an hour for somebody getting paid for 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year. For a family of 4, $77,650. These numbers are updated every year, so make sure you are looking at the most recent limits when you are looking at this in the future. So this is who Section 8 is meant to prioritize, especially those who became homeless or were very serious risk of becoming homeless. Very low income single parents whose income is under 30% of AMI, the elderly, and disabled. Serving these groups does lead to stereotypes, mainly about causing property damage and being a nuisance, a quality of life issue. That scares many landlords away from Section 8, but good screening is how you find good people. For a unit to qualify to take a Section 8 voucher, it must be a legal, full apartment, meaning that this is not for renting by the room or an illegal basement apartment. Of course, a single-family house counts as an apartment for this purpose. Townhouses, brownstones, and other small multifamily buildings, along with large buildings, qualify. The apartment must meet full habitable standards per inspection before lease signing and annually going forward. The program is best suited for basic, non-luxury buildings because the maximum rents that could be covered is 110% of fair market rent, so slightly above average for New York City, and the landlord doesn't get anything extra for providing the extras. Select zip codes are considered opportunity areas, just a fancy way of saying expensive neighborhoods, so they can charge a higher rent so that Section 8 tenants are not confined to poor areas. Some luxury housing did take on tax credits that required them to provide a certain amount of, quote, affordable housing. If those rent levels are within what the voucher says, they are supposed to, by law, give the voucher holder the same level of consideration as somebody meeting the income level to make the rent. According to a May 31st press release from New York State Senator Liz Kurgan's office. Of those selected, priority codes will be given out based on factors like homelessness, domestic violence survivor, NYCHA residents facing uninhabitable conditions, having a mobility impairment, and currently inaccessible housing, being elderly or disabled. So, while people in these groups weren't given an increased chance of getting on the waiting list, of those lucky enough to get on the waiting list, there will be a needs-based priority system. Actual enforcement of anti-source of income discrimination will become more important than ever. Since it is federally funded, after 1 year of living in New York with the voucher, the holder can port out of state. Voucher holders can also utilize the home ownership program. How to prepare. While a non-voucher tenant or homeowner might accept, quote, using a 40 square foot room as a bedroom if it fits their needs, Section 8 won't count it. The realtor might pitch it as a home office or nursery. That's cute, but that doesn't help a Section 8 landlord. Section 8 pays by the bedroom count, so anytime you can convert a room into a bedroom, perhaps by moving a non-load-bearing wall, is where you are going to get the more value add, if it fits the dimensions, of course. Spaces, typically referred to as, quote, finished basements, are not legal livable spaces. It is fine for an entertainment space, storage, and of course a washer dryer, but it can't be a bedroom. So, for Section 8 purposes, it won't help you. Remember, easy fixes is where you get the most value add. So if you see something that is not up to code when buying, consider buying it. Prepare by learning how to spot these things. Of course, get an inspector to confirm what you are seeing as the problem and solution, but there are some clues you can learn to spot before putting in a pre-inspection offer. For example, load-bearing walls are typically places where the wall is on all floors, same place, while a non-load-bearing wall can be anywhere. The columns in the basement, the cellar, also give that away. You can learn what outlets should look like. You can also build relationships with banks and others who give rehab loans. Even a credit card or line of credit with the hardware store can help get funds for materials. Remember, due to the inspections, you'll have to make sure everything is in good repair. Make trustworthy connections with contractors that can help you and perhaps learn some basics like switching out a faucet. And remember to keep it basic. You won't get any extra money for making it fancy, and providing good service will become more important for Section 8 as this new batch of tenants are more likely to consider moving. In closing, with these changes in the coming years, we can expect to see a shift in the Section 8 voucher program where more participants will be full-time workers and of the character that many landlords have preference for. Section 8 is already a great program. It is the closest thing to a guaranteed wealth builder that exists. You can also be helping those in need, here in New York City or anywhere around the country. Best in Pursuits, Abu.